We talked about this a few weeks ago. We gave personal theories, or at
Oh
least I
yeah.
did somewhat, about what Christopher Nolan's next movie would be about. And I brought up an old interview where he discussed things, and I leaned into the idea of saying, like, hey, he is paying attention to AI and he has a lot of thoughts about it. And I
Yeah.
presented the idea that AI might be the launching pad, the baseline concept for what his next movie might be about. And then I saw some people liked it, some people said interesting, some people left comments on that video and said, I think I remember an interview where he said he has no interest in telling an AI movie right now. And
Yes.
I said, I haven't seen that. Could you please send me a reference? Because if you know where he said that, I'd love to see it. They couldn't provide one, at least in the comments. So I'm holding out the idea that at some point he might actually do an AI film. However, it seems like that theory might not be very strong based on rumors that's happening right now. So it's very possible, based on rumors inside the industry, that Chris Nolan's next movie might be about vampires.
Do you think it's going to be an original story about vampires, or
I think it'll be Chris Nolan. I think it'll be. I think they said
so
it might be based during the 1920s or the 1820s. I'm not sure. Oh,
is he going to do like a Dracula thing? Because so what I said
I
when
think
we
it'll be
talked
an
about
original story.
what I said when we talked about Chris Nolan last time was Chris Nolan does this thing where he makes original content and then he makes his version of an already existing topic. Batman, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do something like Tenet, then he'll do Batman. Then he'll
Yeah,
do something that's not original, and then he'll do his
Oppenheimer.
original. Yeah, and then his original. So yeah, he's creating the script and all that stuff, but he's not coming up with an original idea because he doesn't have an original idea, which his last film was not an original idea. Oppenheimer was an existing thing. Even though he had to write the script and he did a lot with it, he didn't write his
He
own
did the
script.
adaptation from the book,
Yes. So
American Prometheus, I believe.
I said this was going to be an original idea, but if it's like, a his version of Dracula, then no, that's not an original.
No, it's not. It wouldn't be an original. Okay, so the other piece of news is Tom Holland. Tom Holland has had a big week as far
He
as
did.
news.
Yeah, yeah.
He signed up for a Spider-Man 4 film that's going to be coming out in 2026.
Or he announced that he
He
signed
announced that he signed a
his contract.
contract with Marvel to do another Spider-Man film after being kind of out of the limelight for the past year and a half. And
Yeah.
then now he's also reportedly the second actor to be in a Chris Nolan film,
Mhm.
with Matt Damon being the lead as right now. So this is going to be a Matt Damon film, but to whatever extent, usually there's a lot of characters, a lot of actors involved in
Sure.
Chris Nolan films. So
I
Tom
mean,
Holland will be in there.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was the side character to in Inception
Yeah.
to Leonardo DiCaprio, but Leonardo DiCaprio and Joseph Levitt-Gordon was in the movie quite a
Joseph
lot.
Gordon-Levitt. Joseph
Gordon-Levitt,
Gordon-Levitt.
thank you.
Yeah. Or in Oppenheimer, you have Robert Downing Jr. to Cillian Murphy, right?
Mhm.
The kind of the antagonist slash protagonist kind of back and forth thing. So we'll see what becomes of that. However, I am interested in diving into this. So apparently back in February, there was a couple reports that Nolan had done an interview. I saw Variety write an article on it. I saw a couple other people back in February of this year that Chris Nolan had expressed the idea that he's very interested in doing a horror film. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to say he was going to do one, just to say he likes the idea of it because it's a challenging field, especially for big budget filmmaking. We've talked about this, right?
Mhm.
And he does typically very large budget films because he shoots 70 millimeter IMAX. And that's expensive. It's really expensive. And so, on top of that, he also said that the industry can be a bit finicky about horror films. Sometimes they'll be greenlit, sometimes they won't. Interestingly enough, he's with Universal now, and Universal has horror movies.
Yeah.
He was with Warner Brothers for a long time. Now
Which,
he's doing with Oppenheimer in his next film. He's with Universal.
when I think of
So,
Warner Brothers, I think of Christopher Nolan. Like, that's
but
what I
he's not
think.
anymore. He's not
So,
Warner Bros.
yeah.
Um, I think Tenet was his last Warner Brothers film, I believe, unless that was also Universal. I can't remember. So let's see if this has any. Let me read exactly what it says. So since Universal announced it was re-teaming with Nolan, fans everywhere have been speculating, us included, about the
Mhm.
nature of the film. One rumor is that it's a horror movie. Another is that it's a helicopter action movie like 1983's Blue Thunder. And the Hollywood Reporter story about Holland's casting writes, the setting is not present day. Okay.
Okay.
So it's a period piece. That's good. I don't think we've seen, well, I guess Oppenheimer was a period piece.
Mhm.
Okay, never mind. I was gonna say the Prestige, to bring up the Prestige, because that was a
Yeah,
horror
yeah, yeah.
film. Although it's unclear whether it is set in the past or the future. Future might be AI. I don't know. We get back to that. We have heard two of those could potentially be true. IO9, which is internal to this article. I guess it's a sub something. I tried to Google it earlier. I didn't quite understand it, but it has to do something with this
What does it
report.
say?
IO9 got word from a reliable source that Nolan's film is a vampire movie set in the 1920s.
Reliable source. Would
That's all hearsay. That is all. That could
yeah.
literally be
His
somebody
his
made this
reliable
up.
source was this homeless guy was like, "Psst, you hear about Christopher Nolan?"
And here's the thing, a lot of the big news outlets like Variety and Hollywood Reporter won't report on it because it is not concrete information. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
So this is Gizmodo, whatever that is, right? That this is where this is coming from. And Gizmodo is saying that
Yeah.
IO9, which I think is internal to Gizmodo, got word from a reliable source that Nolan's film is a vampire movie set in the 1920s. If it's vampire, it would make sense that it's going to be in the horror genre, right?
Yeah.
It would make sense.
Yeah,
Let's see,
yeah,
what
yeah.
else do they say? We know what you're thinking. It's Ryan Coogler already making that. Isn't Ryan Coogler already making that movie? Okay, whatever.
Which this is weird because Christopher Nolan, as much as like Inception is not reality, if you aren't going into people's brains, into their dreams, there is an aspect where he has never done like non a non how would I say this? I don't know. Like humans, he's never done this kind of stuff. The closest thing he did was Batman, but it's Bruce Wayne dressing up like a bat. It's not an actual bat, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Um, they pose an interesting question here. All right, let me read this. They say, let's be honest though. We all want this rumor to be true, right? We want to see Matt Damon and Tom Holland in long flowing coats ripping out people's throats in 70 millimeter IMAX with your seat shaking from the huge Hans Zimmer score. They're not wrong, if I'm being honest. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But that there's also the element of it. Honestly, I know Nolan gets a lot of criticism. They say Tenet takes the concept too far. They say Interstellar's sound mixing was all off. I could barely hear it. Different
Mhm.
stuff like that. There's a lot of criticism for Nolan, but at the end of the day, people kind of like his movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when he's shooting on 70 millimeter IMAX is super fun. If he's doing Batman, he's telling the story about Oppenheimer, he's telling a fictitious story about people entering dreams or going into black holes in space. Like we're kind of here for all of it because we're here for
We
Chris
are.
Nolan,
We're
aren't
here.
we? Right?
Yeah.
And so if he wants to do a horror flick with vampires, I'm here for it. But I don't
I
know.
yeah,
I wouldn't say it's my first choice, but I'm not definitely not opposed to it.
it doesn't feel like Christopher Nolan, but I trust Christopher enough to let him do his thing because everything he's made I've been pleased with to an
Have you
extent.
seen? You saw Tenet, right?
Yeah. I'm the one who had a lot of qualms with Tenet, and
Okay.
as much as I have my qualms, I'll accept it for a Christopher Nolan film. I just think so I will let him do his thing with this and accept that it's probably not going to be cheesy. It's probably not going to be bad. It will be pretty good.
Hmm.
As
I
long
think
as
it'll be great.
my only qualms I've ever had with Christopher Nolan and his films is not that it's cheesy, not that it's not engaging, it doesn't feel good. The only thing I've ever had a problem with Christopher Nolan is
Hmm.
his stuff is too high concept to where it's not a good movie. And we've talked about this over and over again where you have to have a something grounding you in reality, like a small thing you can kind of grasp to follow it, so, and then have your high concept that makes you feel like you're understanding the film, and that is what makes it interesting. And I think his problem is he makes it too high concept, but this is just me nitpicking at Christopher
Uh-huh.
Nolan. This is not, you know,
Okay.
things.